You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
Welcome to Scuderia F1, the podcast that's always up to speed with the latest Formula One news. Follow us on Twitter at Scuderia F1 Pod and subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher. Now, here are your hosts, Mark Dailey and Kevin Laramée.
Hello and welcome to Scuderia F1, the podcast that is always up to speed with Formula One. Well, Kevin, it is finally here. The Formula One season officially gets going in less than 24 hours at the time of this recording, and it seems like the entire winter and part of last fall is completely evaporated, and it's like it never existed. You can almost smell the rubber and the petrol as the new season is literally about to get underway, and I'm really excited. I know you are too.
Less than 24 hours away from the first broadcast of the 2017 F1 season from Melbourne, Australia, from Albert Park, the free practice on Sky Sports, TSN, wherever you watch it in your own place. When you listen to this show, it'll be just a few hours before the race. And Mark, finally, after months of track tensions, month of talking about the new look, the new F1s, the wider, bigger tire, the new rules, the new aerodynamics, the new drivers, new colors of teams, new a lot of things. Finally, we'll see drivers race.
Well, you know, it's funny when you come into Australia, I always find it very difficult to kind of really get a pulse on the new season. You really don't get a good feel to maybe the second or third race of the season once everything kind of settles down. I mean, obviously over the last couple of years coming into Australia, it's like, well, yeah, it's going to be all Mercedes. So
I know what you mean. It's like you don't have your bearings.
Yeah.
Like your marks are not there because the season won't be too bad because just a few teams change their looks. Okay, but here's my theory. Remember a few years in the late 90s or the 2000s where you come back in a new season and basically every team changed the way they look. So then you don't recognize anything. You don't have your bearings. You don't know what to expect, and it takes a race or two, like you mentioned, to get used to it. It reminds me of when you play a video game, a yearly video game like NHL or F1 for that matter, 2016-17. It's like your first go around with the new game. It feels similar, but it's new at the same time, and you have to get used to it because, hey, it's not going to change. It's that way, and you have to get used to it.
Yeah, and I mean, in previous years, what I was thinking was that you just kind of knew over, say, like the last 2-3 years that, well, yeah, Mercedes is going to be the team to beat. It's just going to be, has anybody kind of caught up a little bit, at least coming into this season, and the illusion is still here, at least for a couple of days, that perhaps maybe Ferrari, perhaps maybe Red Bull, or maybe, well, let's be honest, it's probably not going to be anybody else other than Ferrari or Red Bull, but we're all kind of hoping that one of them has really figured out these new rules and regulations, and somebody has gotten the jump on Mercedes and hopefully even both Ferrari and Red Bull, right?
Up until now, Mark, you never know because there's always bronze GP out of nowhere possibilities. It can happen. A team out of the blue with new rules comes out, wins the first race, and goes on a tear and wins the season. It can happen. Will it happen this year? Well, I don't want to break the illusion just hours before the race. I doubt it. But, you know, it's still possible at this moment.
Well, that's just it exactly. But I'm going to make one prediction right now, and I'm pretty sure that this is not going to happen on Sunday, but I'm 100% confident to say that Nico Rosberg is not going to win the 2016 Australian Grand Prix. That I'm confident in saying. Everything else kind of remains to be seen because I'm
not sure that he won't race in 2017, but I can guarantee you that he's not going to win the Australian Grand Prix in 2017 because, well, he's not scheduled to race and he's not in Australia right now. Down the road, who knows what can happen? A team might fire a driver and be like, hey, Nico, how about you come here? That's still a possibility. Who knows what can happen in the crazy world of F1? but not this weekend.
Yeah, not this weekend. I think it's kind of interesting too that now that he's had the benefit of having several months at home and not having to train and stay in shape and test the car over the winter and things like that, that there's been a couple little things here and there over the last week or so that Nico's been saying that he still would like to be involved in motorsports in some capacity. And occasionally his name kind of gets thrown around with Formula E, even though he's basically said he's not going to do that. And of course, Mercedes is going to be running a team in Formula E. What is it, 2018, I think, right? That they're going to have.
I think it's when they're going to change because the cars that they have in Formula E are the same for this season, and they're going to change the chassis and technology in the next few years, where they're not going to have to do as much change as right now. So it's going to change in the next cycle of Formula E. That's when you have constructors like Audi and Mercedes more involved.
Yeah. So, I mean, that is a possibility for Nico. He said that some of the other things that he was thinking about is maybe some sort of advisory role or some sort of management role, perhaps being like a driver advisor and things like that. But definitely, I would think that his...
You know what? I don't think we're going to see him quite soon.
No, I don't think so.
He's behind the wheel or we won't see him. Well, maybe I'm speaking out of turn. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, and that's a fair high probability. But he does seem to me to be the kind of guy who's going to enjoy his retirement, enjoy the lifestyle. And that's one of the reasons why he decided to do retirement, because he can enjoy that lifestyle right now in the prime of his life and not later on, like Jenson Button regretting maybe the last 5 years of his career. So there's that aspect that probably motivated Nico Rosberg to be like, you know what? I'll enjoy the fruit of my labor right now.
But you know, it's so kind of funny that how everything kind of shook out, what with that shock retirement of Nico Rosberg last year, that how it really obviously rocked Formula One and how everybody wanted to get into that seat. That was probably not Lewis Hamilton because he already had the other Mercedes. But, you know, it was fascinating to see like all the names that were getting thrown around there. And Jensen's wasn't one of those, you know, it's just like he'd retired and, you know, he'd be like an ambassador for McLaren and things like that. And it was kind of really sort of anticlimactic because like a couple of weeks before Abu Dhabi, we had the Brazilian Grand Prix and poor old Felipe Massa crashed out. And he had that memorable walk up the pit lane. Yeah. And with all the standing ovation.
He was celebrated like in the last Grand Prix of the season in the paddock. Oh, man, he's back. Oh, geez, he's back. Awkward. Well, hey, I thought we said goodbye, but hey, we'll come back.
Well, I did see a tweet earlier this evening as I was getting everything ready at one of the press conferences, and basically Felipe said that it was a bit of a surprise and a bit strange to be back because he really expected to be sitting around eating more food and getting fatter at this time of year. And here he is.
To be in shape. The cars are pretty hard to drive now, so he has to be in shape. You never know what's going to happen.
Well, that's right, and it's interesting that you should say that because these new specification cars are definitely a lot tougher, and I think that was really a bit of an indication that perhaps that we hadn't seen what Lance Stroll was capable of. Obviously, we're going to see more of that as the year goes on. Obviously, starting this weekend, of course. But at the first couple of days testing poor old Lance, he crashed out right away. And even Lewis Hamilton jumped to his defense, saying that you couldn't pick a worse time in Formula One's history to come into the sport if you're Lance Stroll at 18 years old, coming in as the reigning Formula 3 champion, and then now having to take hold one of these new monsters that are so much more difficult to drive. And yeah, there's obviously a steep learning curve. So we'll see too, especially I think in some of the more physical races this year, if guys are going to tire, because obviously the guys that are going to be fitter and in better shape are going to have the advantage in those situations. But Melbourne, I think, will be interesting to watch from, you know, quite a few different aspects, because it's not really 100% tight and technical. It's got some fast sections, but it's a fairly high downforce track, and it's got some twisty sections too. So I think we'll get a good look at various aspects of the cars and different ways that they're going to perform. So it's going to be interesting to watch that.
Yeah, not just that. It's one of those tracks that it's a known entity. We know Albert Park. They have been racing on it for decades. It's a track where teams have data about it. Yeah, those data don't necessarily correlate with the new F1, but you do have your marks. You do have some bearings. So for the experienced drivers and for Felipe Massa and other experienced drivers, which there's a lot of experienced drivers in Formula One still, even though we always talk, oh, it's a young man's sport. Really? Look at the actual driver's grid. It's kind of a mix, really, right now. So with the experienced drivers, we'll see what they can get out of those brand new cars in a known place that they have a lot of experience at. So that's why it's always important to go to Australia to begin the season, not just because of the weather and the right time of year in winter here in North America, still kind of the beginning of spring, the last 3 days, but still it's like 2 feet of snow everywhere outside here in Montreal. When you look at Australia right now, it's the end of summer, so it's fitting to have it there. But on top of it, you go to a track that you know, that you have data, that you have experiences, marks, and bearings, and you can find yourself and sometimes have a surprising great first race and surprise winners too.
Yeah, and it's also it's fairly similar to last year as well. The first half dozen races are still basically the same. We go to Australia, China, Bahrain, and then after Bahrain, go back to Sochi, Spain, Monaco, Canada. So a lot of the races in the first part of the season are still going to be fairly similar to as we've seen in past years. So we're going to just get a chance to see how it unfolds. And to me, of course, I'm really fascinated to find out whether or not anybody's going to be able to catch the Mercedes. I mean, we were talking about that just now. And that is the big question, because I really hope that somebody has, because the winter testing is always such a big unknown. You know, that some cars are running maybe heavier fuel loads and some aren't. So how fast is Ferrari? How fast is Red Bull? And we all know that McLaren can't even get out of the pits, but it'll really be the big questions I think will be answered this weekend.
I agree. What I feel is, like, I have nothing personally against Mercedes or Lewis Hamilton or Valtteri Bottas now, but it's all very vanilla to me. Like, it's all very, we all trying to be good, to do the right thing, to always, you need more characters in F1. I think that's what's missing. Never mind the rules, never mind the safety. That's important. I agree. It's not what I say when I say never mind. I mean, we need more Max Verstappen, more Danny Kvyat, more Vettel, more characters that makes not just what's going on the track, but makes the whole thing more intriguing. And we had like episodes of it last year, but at the end of the day, it wasn't meant to be. And we had the two Mercedes drivers with some controversy, but not really winning the whole damn thing. So, that's what I hope that we get out of this year. How about Lance Stroll pulls a Verstappen and they both create something? Give me some characters.
And that's right, too. And I think that you make a very good point, just referencing some of the conflicts that we've seen at Mercedes over, say, the last couple of years. But as time went on and there was more things that happened between Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton, the more that I think that the brass at Mercedes got all kind of, oh my God, what are we going to do now? And tried to step in.
They never let it happen, right? It's like we all saw an argument brewing, but never had a blow off or even nothing close to it. So we all like, you know what I mean? So it's like you see something beginning, you see the potential of something, the potential of maybe drama, and then you know what? There is an argument that they don't agree, and there's things going on behind the scenes, and one moves from one team to another. Then they become opponent. That we need to see Prost. No, we need to see Villeneuve Schumacher. We need to see Hakkinen Coulthard in the same team and wanting to win both. We need to see more of those. And we thought that maybe Rosberg and Hamilton was that, and it kind of wasn't.
Well, I think that's a large part due to the fact that not only did Mercedes want to win, not only did they want to dominate, but I think they wanted to annihilate the competition in Formula One, because over the last 3 years, since they started the last previous sets of regulations, I mean, they won something like almost 60 Grand Prix. They won 3 Drivers' World Championships and 3 Constructors' World Championships. I mean, they completely blew everybody away. So whenever it would sort of come to a head between Rosberg and Hamilton, Toto Wolff and the management were very quick to step in and try and diffuse the situation rather than it get out of hand. Whereas we're all sitting here on the outside and it's, oh, this is great stuff. Here's some drama, here's some fire, here's the great.
Give me more.
Exactly, right? And they were very quick to move in and put a lid on it so it didn't really get out of hand. And I think that's why, for example, last year with Sebastian Vettel and all his profanity-laced rants on race radio that really, I think, got so much attention was due to the fact that, hey, this is something different. This is like a human side to a guy that's in a high-pressure situation and he's upset about something. Obviously, there was the incident in the Russian Grand Prix when Danny Kvyat drove into him a couple of times and then knocked him out on the opening lap. And then there was that whole drama at the end of the Mexican Grand Prix when he was being backed into Danny Ricciardo by Max Verstappen. And just Maurizio Arrivabene at the end of the race telling Sebastian to calm down, and Sebastian completely...
Calm down, Sebastian.
We'll talk about it later.
He was told, calm down, Sebastian.
I know. So those are great moments, and I think, like you say, that's what we need more of.
Speaking of having more of, this time we'll have less of, Mark, of Bernie Ecclestone. Can you imagine for the first starting grid in 3 decades, we won't see Bernie Ecclestone? That is like, speaking of changing of the guard, that's the biggest changing of the guard you could ever imagine. Bernie Ecclestone is not going to be on the starting grid or in the paddocks this weekend. Oh, he might be there. I don't know. I'm not there to verify, but not in the official role, at least.
I think that's the thing that amazes me most about Bernie Ecclestone not being in Formula One is that he didn't go out on his own terms. I mean, obviously at his age and what is he, 89 or something like that? I mean, he's up there in age wise. So you have to think that, sadly, perhaps he doesn't have that many years left, but you just kind of had the feeling that he would just leave on his own terms, and just say, I want to enjoy what time I have left with my family and my money and just my friends and just enjoy life, right? But the fact that Liberty came in and they completed their purchase of Formula One, and then they just decided, well, Bernie, we're going to keep you around for a couple of years, but no, actually we're good. And then
bye, Bernie.
Yeah, bye. And then you get these comments from Ecclestone himself saying, I wanted one more year as a CEO of Formula One, and now that I'm gone,
that's kind of smart. Come to think of it, Mark, it's kind of smart by Liberty's part. Instead of giving Bernie 1 year of one last lap around the circuit, one last goodbye, one last hooray, where he catches all the attention, you make him think he does, and boom, you undercut him. You do like they do in the ringer race, like a good F1 team does strategically. You undercut.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're going to move forward in a new era, why not just get it over and done with and just put the changes into place that you want to do? And I think that they made some important appointments right away with Sean Bratches and Ross Braun to oversee the commercial and the sporting sides of the sport, and at least preliminary results, I guess you could say, or at least some of the early things that we're seeing, that it's promising. They know what they have, and they obviously have said themselves that they may have taken on a bigger challenge that they realized, but I guess it's kind of like the Dark Knight, or the Dark Knight. There's that famous saying that, what was it? Sometimes you get the hero that you need, not the hero that you deserve. So maybe that Liberty are those people that Formula One needs, because they have that business or that background in show business, and they realize that Formula One needs to concentrate on some of its traditional places. And there's some of these new races that have come in over the last little while that don't really do anything to enhance the brand and build the sport. And they've actually been fairly outspoken about that. And they've drawn a little bit of criticism, especially, what was it, about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, Liberty's Greg Maffei said something to the effect that the race at Baku in Azerbaijan, the new European Grand Prix, wasn't doing anything to help build Formula One, which drew quite a bit of backlash, right?
Baku. It was not made to build Formula One. It was paid for. It was a big advertisement for the new tourist destination that Baku wants to be in Europe. It's politically even politically charged in today's world in Europe. So, and that's why the Baku Grand Prix exists. Not because of, oh, it's good for Formula One to go into a new place. No, it's because for the new place, it's good for them to have Formula One.
Definitely. And that's why I'll be honest. I don't have anything against new races coming in, but I don't like to see that at the expense of not having like a Hockenheim, for example. Or last year in the summer, there was a lot of talk after the Italian Grand Prix that they weren't necessarily going to be able to secure the future of the Italian Grand Prix at Monza. And I can't believe that we've been so many years without a French Grand Prix. Obviously, Paul Ricard is back on the circuit or back on the calendar for 2018, but then you also hear potentially that Silverstone was going to try and break their contract early because it was just costing too much. And those sorts of things really kind of blow my mind. I really can't picture a Formula One calendar that does not feature a Grand Prix at any one or potentially all of those venues. So I'm glad that they're securing some of these races, like Monza's taken care of, and things are sounding more promising for the British Grand Prix. But it's a real fine line, and I do agree that whatever they're doing, I think that they have to do it to try and build the brand and build the sport, and not necessarily just because it makes a certain city or a certain country look good. So it'll be interesting to see what Liberty does. They said they want to focus on some of these traditional races and traditional circuits and build on those. But I don't know. I'd still like to see the Vegas one. So we'll see whether or not they decide to get that one sorted out, or potentially New York. That could be cool as well.
Exactly, right? It's glitz, glamour. We've seen, like, remember when we were all like skeptical about night races and what it could look like in Singapore, and we're all like surprised. We actually look forward to now to that beautiful spectacle and the lights and all. But maybe that could be replicated. Imagine Vegas on the Strip. That could be like amazing, right? So great HD television. It's awesome camera shots you can do there. So that's possible in the future. So, but you know what I'm excited for? Remember in 2016, first race of the season, Haas was coming in and they had some good potential and they had points in the first few races and was great beginning of the season. Then it went downhill and fast and quickly and hard. I'm interested to see if they will be now one of the worst teams. They could be better than McLaren, because then that's the benchmark. And I think Haas has a shot of being better than McLaren.
Well, I would hope so. And yeah, they were a great story at the beginning of 2016. Obviously, Romain Grosjean scored points in the very first race for the team at Australia, and then scored points in 3 of the first 4 Grand Prix, which was a great story. And then sadly after that, they tailed off quite a bit. Obviously, they were going to struggle at some point being a brand new team and not really having a lot of data for all of the tracks. So they were learning a lot of things along the way, I guess is the simplest way to put it. But they did have a promising winter test. They didn't have any problems with their Ferrari engine. They got a decent amount of time out testing and lots of distance. And they do have a benefit now of being to all the tracks from last year. There's no tracks that are new for this year. So it will be interesting to see what they can do. They were talking that they were still having problems with the Brembo brakes, and that they were going to be testing some different ones perhaps for Australia. And that was one of the big issues, because I think it was the US Grand Prix at Austin last year where both Haas's went off and crashed in the same gravel trap towards the end of the race. So
I think so,
yeah. It would be good to see them do better, but Formula One is always the same, right? And there were a couple of things that were out there that I think that some of the brass at Toro Rosso were saying that the competition won't improve until the revenues and the spending are equalized. And
it's kind of true though. Like, how do you like Force India, to the team that has some budget, to even compete with a team like Ferrari or Mercedes that has like not unlimited? That's not necessarily true nowadays, which maybe at one point it was. Now it's not necessarily unlimited, but multiple hundreds of millions of dollars, if it's not billions of dollars, compared to a few hundreds, if that.
I know, and that's the amazing thing too. When you look at the budgets of some of the smaller Formula One teams, I mean, to you or I, that's like just an astronomical amount. But when when you look at the context of Formula One, it's still going to put them 3 or 4 seconds a lap slower compared to some of the top cars. So I mean, it makes such a huge difference when just these small improvements and tweaks or a better engine or whatever the case may be adds up to a half a second here or a tenth of a second there. And then when you factor in the whole package that, yeah, you are 3 or 4 seconds a lap faster than everybody else. And those guys at the back of the grids, they just don't have it, or they disappear like Manor.
Oh yeah, exactly. Manor. Rest in peace, Manor Racing.
Exactly.
You remembered, not just for bad, some good, but a lot of bad too.
Sadly, yes. Well, as we start to wrap things up now, Kevin, let's just take a quick look back at the race from last year. It was basically a race of 2 halves, maybe not quite like a football match, but fairly similarly, because on lap 19 we have that famous horrific accident when Fernando Alonso tried to go around Esteban Gutierrez, who was then driving for Haas F1. And I think, was it in turn 3 or turn 2, whatever? No, I guess it was turn 3. And they had that horrific crash where he went sideways at right angles into the gravel trap and launched his McLaren and went all the way through the gravel trap and demolished it at the back. And fortunately, of course, Fernando was okay. He missed a race afterwards in Bahrain because of concussion. And it was interesting, though, how it broke up the race, like I was saying, into 2 halves. And in that first 19 laps, it was Ferrari because they were on row 2, and it was Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen that were able to sneak through Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg that were on the front row into turn 1. And they were out there, the 2 Ferraris leading. And then after they had that was 15 or 20 minute delay while they tidied up and cleared up the accident with Gutierrez and Alonso, then when they started again, it was all Mercedes. They came out stronger, and they had a different pit stop strategy, and they went for the harder mediums. Ferrari went for the softer. I think they went for super soft tires. Anyhow, Vettel, he had to make an extra pit stop, and even though he was faster, he just couldn't catch Lewis Hamilton. And Kimi Räikkönen's engine blew up. So will we see more of the same this year? That's going to be very interesting. And we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah, you mentioned it to Ferrari drivers. A lot of questions need some answering by Ferrari this year, Mark. Now, you're looking at 2016, very disappointing year for Ferrari as a whole. Key players, key people in key position didn't guide Ferrari to success. Mauricio, everybody, to be quite clear. And this year now, but a lot of hype because of some result in preseason, for whatever those results might be worth. Now they come into it's now or never time. Do they confirm the glimpse of potential that people have seen in their results in preseason? Or is it more of the same of 2016? Like, those are the questions. We will have answers less than 24 hours from now.
And the other thing is that's going to be interesting about Ferrari this year as well is that based on what happened last year, there was things that were said by some of the Ferrari brass, like Maurizio Arrivabene said that even Sebastian Vettel had to prove his worth to stay at Ferrari. And of course, Sebastian is out of contract at the end of this year. And then further down, way at the back of the grid, Fernando Alonso was also out of contract. So there could be people going to different places. There's a couple of big names that are going to be perhaps looking for a drive at the end of this year. I was just sort of thinking maybe Fernando wouldn't want to go back to Ferrari, but based on where he ended up with McLaren, maybe he would.
Young. I think if it's not like next year, if Vettel doesn't come back, it's 2 new drivers. I don't think Kimi is coming back next year, no matter what. Outside of Kimi winning the championship, I don't think really Kimi comes back. And no offense to Kimi, I think it's time that Ferrari takes a gamble and goes get a young, very talented potential driver, maybe if not drivers, if not 2, to go back to when Ferrari was really great. It's when they had a very young, hungry driver. That's what they need.
Yeah, and Sergio Marchionne, the president of Ferrari, was saying about a week ago that the team has to get back to that dominance that they had in the early 2000s and the late 1990s when Schumacher was the king of Formula One and won all those championships and things like that. And he believes that the team is actually a lot closer than a lot of people think. So it will be interesting to see if they can pull it off this year, and if they don't, are they at least moving in that direction? And if they decide not to bring back Kimi Räikkönen, who is actually, is he the oldest driver in Formula One now? I can't remember if he's slightly older than Massa or if it's the other way around. I mean, they're both, it's going to be one of the two of them. I mean, they're both.
Kimi. No, I think it's Kimi, because I remember 13 years ago, I had some very sweet Puma shoes, Kimi Räikkönen Ferrari special.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like 13, 14 years ago.
So there you go. So he would have been probably 22, 23 at the time. So yeah, that probably put him about 37 or 38 or thereabouts. So yeah, if they can't get it done this year, what do they decide to do next year? Especially if the car is that much better, would you want to risk losing a winner like Sebastian Vettel when you know that next year's car is going to be the one? So they're going to be asking some big questions. So,
and you were bang on, he's 37.
There you go. That was a good guess. I remember actually the first Grand Prix I went to was the 2001 European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, and that
37 years of age right now. Räikkönen is the oldest. Alonso 37, 35, Hamilton 32, and Vettel 29.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to get at, was that when I went to that race, Alonso was just in his early 20s, and he was still driving for Minardi. He was a unknown quantity, and can you believe that Minardi was still a thing back then? And obviously,
he drove, like, speaking of Alonso, he drove for almost every team out there. If you think about it, he rode for like Minardi. I remember him for Renault, like back in the Flavio Briatore days. Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren. Did he drive for only Red Bulls? He only didn't go to Red Bull, basically.
Yeah, but it's funny, like sometimes you have different guys in different sports. It seems like they've played for every team at one time or another. And then you think about like a guy like Fernando that has driven for quite a number of Formula One teams, but it doesn't really think about it. It doesn't really feel like it when you think about it. It's like, oh yeah, he actually has driven more than you kind of realize, right? But that's kind of cool. But as we wrap it up here now, Kevin, let's play prediction time. Who do you think is going to win this race on Sunday?
Well, first race, first time in years that we come into a season with no champion. Champion has retired. Everybody's kind of hungry. So the default champion is Lewis Hamilton. To be the man, you have to beat the man. Lewis Hamilton, until somebody beats him, he'll be my predicted winner.
I was going to say the same thing, that I was going to be like, we were talking about how like Mercedes can be a little bit vanilla. I was going to go for the vanilla choice and say Lewis Hamilton and then agree with you. But then I thought, no, that's just a little bit too vanilla. So that's a little bit too predictable. So I'm going to say that Ferrari's speed at winter testing in Barcelona was for real. I'm going to say that Sebastian Vettel wins this one, with Lewis Hamilton in second, and then third position. Oh boy, I'm going to say Max Verstappen. I think that Danny Ricciardo finishes off of the podium and break the Australian hearts. So we'll see whether or not that pans out or not.
So for my podium, I go with... it's hard. It's hard to try to predict what can happen with surprising team, and you never know what can happen with reliability as well in a very, very intricate first race of the season. But known quantities will be Valtteri Bottas in second, and in third, Danny Ricciardo.
There you go. We've got to try and give Ricciardo a little bit of love when especially since he's racing at home. And I should warn everybody, don't go and run out and put money on this, because I'm notorious at picking the wrong teams or guys when it comes to placing bets or making any sort of predictions. So I would take that with a very large pinch of salt. But anyways, the season is back and so are we. So we're looking forward to doing this all year long after every race and in between. So until the next time, Kevin, what's going on over at SPN on the network, and where can everybody stay up to date and follow all the latest news?
For every Major League Soccer fan, Sunday nights, 1 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 p.m. Pacific, on the Sports Podcast Network, you can listen live to the MLS postgame show. You can call in, give us your opinion on your team's games of the weekend, the topics, the trends, your game reports, all that on MLS postgame show. And you can find every show that we do here at the Sports Podcast Network on the website, sportspodcastnetwork.com, and available on iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, everywhere you get your podcasts.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much, Kevin. We look forward to doing this again next week as we wrap up the first Grand Prix of the year. Of course, if you want to find out all the latest news for this show, just head on over to Twitter and follow us at Scuderia F1 Pod. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/Scuderia F1 Pod. And that's a wrap. We will see you all virtually, I suppose, in Australia as the new season gets underway. And that's a wrap. We'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks for listening to the Scuderia F1 podcast. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, then head over to ScuderiaF1pod.com. Want to get in touch with us? Then email us at ScuderiaF1pod@gmail.com.
You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.